Hurricane season is here.
I just couldn't believe that the winds could be so fierce.
Now is the time to prepare.
So before the season even starts, have a checklist, make sure the family has a plan.
Florida spared a direct hit in 2025, but what will 2026 bring?
Yeah, that risk is there every year. Everybody in South Florida, the Florida Keys, has to be prepared every year.
Tonight, what you can expect and what you should be doing now to survive the season, Hurricane 2026.
Hello, I'm Next Weather meteorologist Nick Marianos here on Fort Lauderdale Beach. For the last several years, warm ocean temperatures have been a key focus heading into the season because it can fuel stronger storms and contribute to rapid intensification. The focus is also on a forecasted strong to very strong El Nino. And for those of you who are familiar with hurricane season, you know that typically means that we expect fewer hurricanes in the Atlantic. But as we saw in 1992 with Hurricane Andrew, that does not mean that we are immune from seeing a hurricane hit here. It just takes one storm. To get us better prepared, the National Hurricane Center is changing the way it displays watches and warnings. The new graphic you see will now cover inland communities, with the goal being to help us all be more vigilant, no matter how far from the coast that we live. 2025 brought no hurricanes to the U.S. It's the first time that's happened since 2015, but that doesn't mean a storm didn't affect our community. Hurricane Melissa devastated Jamaica, which prompted a call to action here in South Florida. We caught up with a father and daughter who had trouble connecting after the storm to get a better understanding of how Jamaica is doing now.
I just couldn't believe that the winds could be so fierce.
At 86 years old, Albert Stephen has seen a lot of hurricanes. He's weathered Gilbert in 1988, saw the destruction of Andrew in 1992. But it was devastating Category 5 Melissa that really took his breath away.
Even though we had battened in the door and the window, I watched the storm take the door off the hinge.
Stephen rode out the storm in Argyle Mountain in the parish of Westmoreland. Melissa hit Jamaica with 185-mile-per-hour winds. It's tied for the strongest landfalling Atlantic hurricane on record by wind speed. It also gave Stephen's daughter, Kamali, the scare of her life.
I was devastated. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. It was a very tough time.
Days after the storm cleared in late October, she couldn't find her dad. When she finally did,
it was a relief, but I still was concerned. I needed to get there.
The two now sit side by side here in South Florida, but he does plan to go back, even if that means riding out another storm.
You know, we're all in the hurricane path every year, all, you know, so, but I'd be in Jamaica.
And that has Kamali Stephen preparing for storm season in an entirely different way. She's not just getting supplies ready for herself, she's preparing for others in Jamaica.
I learned a lot last year, so we'll be ready again if it gets that bad. I hope it doesn't get that bad.
Melissa is blamed for 45 deaths and causing nearly $9 billion in losses to Jamaica. Overall, there were at least 50 other deaths blamed on the storm. Now is the time to make sure you have your hurricane supplies, and waiting till the last minute could mean you can't get what you need. We know it's an added expense and not everyone has the budget for it, but it's a necessity. That's why we asked Next Weather meteorologist Lisette Gonzalez to help you find ways to save.
Whether you've weathered storms before or are new to preparing for hurricane season, a hurricane kit is essential for surviving the season. That's why we went shopping with Sandra Ivanette. The goal? To shop and save on the items needed for our kit.
So I'm always looking at apps, maybe Target, shop around, go to Walmart, maybe go to Costco, look at Amazon's app. So just making sure that I get the best price, just to keep in my budget.
$137 here at Walmart. Let's check Amazon.
$199 on Amazon.
So more expensive on Amazon.
Yes,
what about
absolutely.
Target?
Let's see. Target, $139.
Oh, so very
pretty
comparable.
close.
Checking between your favorite stores is the way to go to save. So is using coupons, digital and paper. The savings are important, but the mission is shopping for the essentials. At least 7 days of non-perishable foods, a first aid kit, toiletries. Flashlights, batteries, a must. So is propane for a grill or portable stove.
Definitely need pet food.
Ivanette's advice for shopping smart?
So before the season starts, create a checklist with the family, then you go through the checklist and then start buying the things on the checklist, like the food, the water, and then the goal is to beat that rush just in case there is a threat.
Now, these are just a few of the items you'll need in your hurricane kit. For the complete list, head to our website, cbsmiami.com, to check out our hurricane guide. I'm Lisette Gonzalez, CBS News, Miami.
When you shop for those supplies, some may be tax-free, like batteries, fire extinguishers, smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are just some of those items that are tax-free year-round in Florida. The permanent exemption started in August of last year, replacing the better-known tax-free holidays of years past. Once you have your supplies, you should make sure you have a hurricane plan. It's not as simple as deciding if you'll stay or go, but also where to go in your home. Next, weather meteorologist Dave Warren walked through his home with Broward Emergency Management.
Look at, this is a typical two-story single-family home.
Clay Pacheco is the Emergency Management Director in Broward County. We asked him to show us what we all need to be thinking about when we are hunkered down for a storm. That starts with knowing where your safe room is.
The thing with the safe room, there's no windows. First and foremost, that's the most important point, is there's no windows.
You need to know where it is and how to get there fast.
Most importantly, especially if we get an out-of-the-blue tornado warning, which we get many in the northwest quadrant of hurricanes. And the scariest part, you may have 5 to 10 minutes notice that it's coming on top of you.
It's also a good practice to have what you will need nearby.
You want to have a light, a way to get alerts, and a way to protect yourself even.
Absolutely, very important. Some folks can use pillows. You can use a small mattress, something that you can hold on top of you if you were to get hit with the tornado and you'd have a collapse of a second floor. You'd have some protection for your head.
The safe room is only as good as the protection surrounding it.
What does an hurricane impact mean?
It actually does a great job for you. It really gives you a layer of protection that regular windows don't. If you don't have impact windows, the next best option is shutters. But with impact windows, they're tested and tried over and over again at a category 3, 4, and 5 hurricane.
If you install windows and want to keep the shutters, that's fine, but you don't have to.
I have accordions on my home, and it really gives that extra layer of protection to protect your roof, but you are more than fine with impact windows.
When it comes to staying safe in a storm, it all comes down to preparing. Getting the home ready from the outside and also knowing where to go on the inside, keeping you safe during and after the storm. Dave Warren, CBS News, Miami.
Next on Survive the Season, Hurricane 2026. They fly high in the sky to better tell us where a storm will strike.
It's a lot of vibrations. There's a lot of rapid airspeed changes, altitude changes. There's a lot of rain.
The mission of the hurricane hunters. First, the flood concerns you should be prepared for. And Insurance 101, making sure you are covered when you need to be. Next.
Hurricane 2026 Survive the Season on CBS News Miami is sponsored by FPL, working for you every single day. Learn more at fpl.com/storm.
At FPL, we plan for storm season all year long. We're strengthening poles to better withstand severe weather. We're clearing lines to improve resiliency, and we're constantly training teams to act at a moment's notice. Because we're always working, always preparing. So when storms do hit, you can count on us. FPL, working for you every single day.
Polo International Roofing and Air Conditioning has protected Florida buildings since 2008. We've installed over 50 million square feet of roofing, making us the largest and most respected polyurethane foam roofing contractor in the country. If you own a commercial building, industrial building, HOA, or condominium, and insurance denied coverage, we have the solution. Our polyurethane foam roofing system is hurricane resistant and energy efficient. We remove your old roof, apply a high-performance primer, install our polyurethane foam, and finish it with industrial-grade silicone to form a monolithic, weatherproof barrier. Florida Construction Code approved and accepted by all major insurances. We offer free estimates, free inspections, 100% financing. From the Galleon Resort in Key West to the Port of Jacksonville, Leon Medical Center, Regency Tower Condominiums, Bermuda House Condominiums, Palm Air Condominiums, Century Village. Our work is everywhere. For roofing, we're the experts. For air conditioning, we're the team you trust. Visit polo14.com.
Look Target Repair Windows and Doors. Look Target Repair Windows and Doors. Protecting your home and family from a storm.
call 954-500-LOCK. That's 954-500-LOCK.
If a storm threatens us, the CBS News Miami Hurricane Network is here to keep you safe. These are our radio partners in Miami-Dade and Broward. And here are our radio partners in the Keys, which includes US 1 Radio. Our newspaper partner is the Miami Herald. And if a hurricane warning is issued, South Florida PBS WPBT2 will broadcast CBS News Miami and CW Miami 33 storm coverage with on-screen captioning. Hurricane insurance. Those two words get a lot of attention in and out of hurricane season. Hurricane protection is part of what's become a pricey policy in Florida. But when a storm threatens, there are things you need to know well ahead of time to make sure you don't get caught unprotected. CBS News Miami's Steve Majeri is your reporter with that important information.
Carrie D'Angelo has these accordion shutters on top of her windows and back door. She says these tools complement but don't replace a good hurricane insurance policy.
Protection, prevention for damage is key, right? Rather than be reactive, you want to be proactive.
Her broker is Nicole Marcus. Marcus tells me there are about 25 quality home insurers in Florida now, which she says is a much more competitive market than a few years ago.
There was a point when you would get a renewal and you were getting 50, 60, 70% increases, sometimes 100% rate increase, and there was nowhere to go.
The Insurance Information Institute estimates 15 to 20% of Florida homeowners currently have no insurance. Marcus says the current market gives homeowners who ditched coverage because of high premiums something to think about.
Are you willing to spend $700,000 out of pocket, or is it better to risk it and have a premium of, $6,000 to $8,000 a year?
And if you have to file a claim, insurance lawyer Dayron Montez de Oca says there are new laws you should know too. Homeowners used to have 2 years to file a claim. Now they only have 1 year. And insurers used to have 90 days to decide to pay or deny a claim. Now they only have 60 days.
So while you're filing faster, they're also having to respond faster when you do file.
Marcus says if you wait until the start of storm season to enroll in hurricane coverage, you'll either likely have much higher premiums or a carrier just may not cover you at all. It's also worth noting that a lot of insurance companies have a block on starting new policies whenever there is a threat of severe weather. Steve Majeri, CBS News, Miami.
One thing not covered by your homeowner's policy, flood insurance. Storms have become wetter in recent years, leading some companies to mandate the added coverage and costs. CBS News Miami's Larry Seward is your reporter covering flood concerns.
In Oakland Park, they're cleaning storm drains, clearing debris, a sign of improvement for homeowners and renters in the North Andrews community. Much of it lies in a special flood hazard area. But on the brink of storm season, flood insurance is hardly on retired resident James Wirtz's mind.
I don't want to buy any kind of insurance.
Why is that?
My brother paid 30 years on insurance on his house that flooded, and they canceled him. Why should that happen to me?
Flooding is no small risk in South Florida. 3 years ago, one heavy April rain wiped out homes in parts of Broward County.
Just 1 inch of flood water could cost $25,000 of damage in your home. So you can imagine if you have a foot of flood water in your home, how much damage that is, and you would be on the hook to pay that out of pocket.
Mark Freelander works for the Insurance Information Institute. He says renters and homeowners should strongly consider flood policies, which are separate from standard and hurricane wind protection. Buyers can score policies through the National Flood Insurance Program. In Florida, Freelander says the average cost is $894 a year, but there are limits. National flood insurance policies cover no more than $250,000 of damage to single-family homes.
If you have a more expensive home, meaning it's going to cost more for the replacement after a natural catastrophe, you want to look at the private market.
Florida's Office of Insurance Regulation lists 57 private providers, though most policies come with 30-day waiting periods before coverage kicks in.
There are no policies available at the last minute. In fact, there are moratoriums that are put in place on all insurance coverage when storm warnings are issued.
Wirtz has no plans to move, but he sees and hears reason to reconsider his flood insurance views.
I figure if it flooded here before, it's going to flood again, that's for sure.
In Oakland Park, Larry Seward, CBS News, Miami.
After a storm moves out, all attention turns to power and getting it restored as soon as possible. FPL says that's its mission when a storm comes our way. Next weather meteorologist Shane Hinton has what's being done to get the lights back on faster.
Even though South Florida hasn't seen direct landfall from a hurricane in years, FPL is constantly looking at ways to improve its services to make sure that the lights get turned on for you even faster.
No one wants to be without power during a storm, especially for days on end. Florida Power and Light says it's focused on getting the power back on sooner. And it says the proof is in the work done over the last 2 decades improving infrastructure. Some of the most noticeable improvements include burying or reinforcing existing power lines. This is part of the Storm Secure Underground project, which started after Hurricane Irma moved through the area. Since the initiative started, about 2,000 miles of power lines have been relocated underground across the state.
By improving the resiliency of the grid in that area, we're able to be more efficient and make our total grid more resilient.
FPL reports underground lines performed between 5 to 14 times better compared to overhead lines during Hurricanes Debbie, Helene, and Milton in 2024. Main power lines are being reinforced with either concrete or steel. This helps prevent poles from being knocked over during storms and leads to quicker repairs.
If all our crews need to do is restring a wire onto a concrete pole as opposed to putting up a whole brand new pole, it helps us to be far more efficient and get the lights back on faster for our customers.
About 85% so far of the main power lines in FPL's service area are either reinforced or buried underground.
Reporting from West Palm Beach, I'm next weather meteorologist Shane Hinton, CBS News, Miami.
If you have an electric vehicle, scooter, bike, or lawn equipment, make sure you unplug it and move it to higher ground before a storm hits. This is the reason why. Fires like this one in the city of South Pasadena near St. Petersburg after Hurricane Helene in 2024. Many were blamed on EVs or other products with lithium batteries. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue has this advice.
If you own an electric vehicle, do not leave it plugged into a charger during a flood event. Never attempt to drive or charge a vehicle that has been submerged in flood waters. Water infiltration into an electric vehicle's high voltage battery can damage it, increasing the risk of a battery fire.
It's important to know that if an EV or electric scooter or bike floods, even off the charger, it could short out and pose a danger to your household. When a storm threatens, NOAA hurricane hunters are the eyes in the eye of the storm. They collect critical data that helps forecasters develop their advisories. Next weather meteorologist Scotty Withers takes us inside their efforts to save lives.
It's a dangerous mission with one goal in mind: to save lives. The U.S. Air Force's 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron operates 10 of these Super Hercules aircraft, but it's no ordinary plane.
This is it right here, an $80 million flying laboratory. It's a hurricane hunter. It's one of about a dozen that the U.S. Air Force and the National Weather Service has. They send this up and into those eye walls of Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricanes, and the data they send back helps keep you safe.
These aircraft can really fly directly into a tropical storm or hurricane and provide us direct measurements of how strong the storm is, how big it is, tell us where it's located.
The temperature, the humidity, the wind speed, the pressure, which is very important when we're in the center of the hurricane, because that is one of the very vital information that the Hurricane Center is looking for.
That data comes back to us in real time for our forecasters to look at the Hurricane Center. It also goes into the forecast models that we use to tell you where the storm's going to go, how big it's going to be, how strong it's going to be.
The flight crew experiences that strength firsthand as they pierce the eye wall.
They've been flying this plane since the 1990s. That's thousands of flights through some of the most intense storms we've ever seen.
The eye wall is really intense, lots of wind and rain and turbulence and lightning and hail and stuff. And it's interesting, you hit the eye wall and the airplane's getting beat up.
This is one of 2 weather stations on the Hurricane Hunter. The person that sits here is responsible for this. It's called a drop sonde. It's about the size of a paper towel roll. Goes into this tube and gets pushed down into the clouds. As it falls, that parachute opens up and slows its descent. While it's dropping down to Earth, it's collecting really important data about the wind speeds, and that's sent back to the National Hurricane Center that goes into the forecast.
It's really important to have those direct measurements when a storm's changing very quickly.
The fleet of hurricane hunters and the flight teams are ready to be deployed as this season kicks off. Scott Withers, CBS News, Miami.
Next, expectations for 2026.
It's very important to understand that it only takes one.
What you need to know now to make sure you're ready when it matters most. Plus, Do you really understand the difference between a watch and a warning? Meteorologist Dave Warren clears up the confusion.
Hurricane 2026 Survive the Season on CBS News Miami is sponsored by FPL, working for you every single day. Learn more at fpl.com/storm.
At FPL, we plan for storm season all year long. We're strengthening poles to better withstand severe weather. We're clearing lines to improve resiliency, and we're constantly training teams to act at a moment's notice. Because we're always working, always preparing. So when storms do hit, you can count on us. FPL, working for you every single day.
Polo International Roofing and Air Conditioning has protected Florida buildings since 2008. We've installed over 50 million square feet of roofing, making us the largest and most respected polyurethane foam roofing contractor in the country. If you own a commercial building, industrial building, HOA, or condominium, and insurance denied coverage, we have the solution. Our polyurethane foam roofing system is hurricane resistant and energy efficient. We remove your old roof, apply a high-performance primer, install our polyurethane foam, and finish it with industrial-grade silicone to form a monolithic, weatherproof barrier. Florida Construction Code approved and accepted by all major insurances. We offer free estimates, free inspections, 100% financing. From the Galleon Resort in Key West to the Port of Jacksonville, Leon Medical Center, Regency Tower Condominiums, Bermuda House Condominiums, Palm Air Condominiums, Century Village. Our work is everywhere. For roofing, we're the experts. For air conditioning, we're the team you trust. Visit polo14.com.
Your reporters. They're South Florida's truth seekers, connected to your community, and always getting you the full story. Get to know your reporter, only on CBS News Miami.
South Florida, hurricane season is here and being prepared matters. Join CBS Miami and Neighbors for Neighbors June 6th for our free hurricane supply drives. These are critical items you need to ride out our next storm. Visit cbsmiami.com for locations and details. The forecast is in for this hurricane season. National Hurricane Center and NOAA forecasting 8 to 14 named storms. Out of those, 3 to 6 are expected to become hurricanes and 1 to 3 are expected to become major hurricanes. And there's a lot of variables going into what drives how active a hurricane season is. One of those that's going to be a big factor come this hurricane season is the fact that we have El Nino developing across the equatorial Pacific. And this is going to drive weather patterns all around the globe. You can see the above average temperatures already getting into the season. As we get later into the season, the effects of El Nino will have a much stronger role. And how does this happen? How does water temperatures over the equatorial Pacific drive the pattern across the Atlantic and impact areas such as Florida? Well, as storms get going later into the season, a stronger El Nino means we have more wind shear across the Atlantic, and what that allows and takes place, why this brings our hurricane season to at or below average, and that's going to be the expectation, is the fact that you have a stronger subtropical jet stream. So as storms start to ramp up across the Atlantic, across the Caribbean, those stronger upper level winds kind of shear those storm tops off. So it really limits how tall those storms grow, how organized they can get, and overall helps bring us at least a season that is at or below average. And regardless of how many storms we see form during the course of a hurricane season, it just takes one storm. So that's why the next weather team will bring you hurricane season coverage in a way no one else can all season long.
Right, we've got even more tools in our immersive weather sphere to help you understand what's coming and when.
We can track bands of rain as they develop, keeping you and where you live at the forefront of everything we do.
Water temperatures and wind speeds. We can pinpoint it all, helping you better understand what you're experiencing.
All of this with one goal in mind, to bring you a more complete weather story and to keep you and your family safe. Now, while higher wind shear in the Atlantic due to El Nino usually leads to lower tropical activity, it doesn't mean we're in the clear. In fact, historically, Florida has experienced several landfalling systems during El Nino years. Tropical storm Alberto, for example, it made landfall in 1994 near Destin. Most recently, Hurricane Idalia made landfall in the Big Bend of Florida as a major Category 3. In 2023, this was during a hurricane season when a strong El Nino was present. And no one could forget 1992, when Hurricane Andrew became the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in South Florida as a Category 5. It caused an estimated $26 billion in damage to the United States, including destroying 99% of the mobile homes in Homestead. Now, while El Nino had officially transitioned to a neutral phase before Andrew developed, this is a prime example of why we need to take each season seriously, regardless of how much activity is expected.
Now is a good time to know your zone in case an evacuation is ordered. In Broward County, there are 2 plants. You can see them right here on the map. This is the plant in Miami-Dade. The county bases its evacuation plan off its storm surge planning zones. In Monroe County, the 5 zones are subject to a phased evacuation plan. In all cases across South Florida, evacuation orders will include people in mobile homes. Shelters are considered a safe place of last resort. It's recommended you stay with family or friends who live inland in a non-evacuation zone. Shelter locations will be announced when evacuations are ordered.
I'm next weather meteorologist Dave Warren. When we talk about watches and warnings, it's for tropical storms or hurricanes. There's the wind speeds needed. Now, the watches and warnings are pretty much when we expect to see those conditions. If a storm is well out in the Atlantic, there's no alerts issued. Near the southeast coast, we're just watching the forecast track. If the storm continues to track closer and closer, now this is the point where you would have watches or warnings issued along the coast or over the interior. A watch means conditions are possible within 48 hours. A warning means conditions are expected within 36 hours or less in that warning area. So what should you be doing? With no active systems, build up your kit, have your plan, put your plan into action when you get a watch issued, because that means conditions are possible within 48 hours. Have all your supplies ready, because when a warning is issued, it is too late to prepare. Make sure you have everything ready and be where you need to be to ride out the storm.
Before we go tonight, a few final reminders to help make sure you and your family are prepared for whatever this season will bring. First, a quick checklist of what you should be doing. Now is the time to put together your hurricane kit. Financial protection is just as vital. So review your insurance coverage. Being prepared means knowing what's in your policies, and that includes flood protection. Understand your hurricane deductibles. That can help avoid financial shock after a storm. And know your risk. That will determine your action plan, including whether you should stay or go. Be prepared for what's next with CBS News Miami on social media and cbsmiami.com. Our website's hurricane section is a comprehensive resource to help with your hurricane plan. You'll find it on our 2026 Hurricane Guide there. And grab your phone. You can now scan that QR code on the screen to find a tracking map and other useful information in the guide. And count on live CBS News Miami hurricane coverage, always streaming on CBS News Miami. Find it on Pluto TV or your favorite streaming device with the CBS News app. And you can count on the next weather team to keep you informed all hurricane season long. Dave, Lisette, Shane, Scotty, and I will keep you informed and prepared. For now, on Fort Lauderdale Beach, I'm next weather meteorologist Nick Marianos. Thank you for watching.
Hurricane 2026 Survive the Season on CBS News Miami is sponsored by FPL, working for you every single day. Learn more at fpl.com/storm.
At FPL, we plan for storm season all year long. We're strengthening poles to better withstand severe weather. We're clearing lines to improve resiliency, and we're constantly training teams to act at a moment's notice. Because we're always working, always preparing. So when storms do hit, you can count on us. FPL, working for you every single day.